Greetings, my friends. So, wait, let me sit. Anyway, I'm a little bit unprofessional today. So, today we're going to talk about dracon. Dracons are the divisions of the zodiac into thirds. So, for example, every 10 degrees of a sign has a different dracon. And if you remember from several weeks back, the Phaladipika explained how you name the dracons, like how you identify the dracons. The ruler of the first dracon in the sign is always the ruler of that sign. Then the second is the ruler of the fifth from the sign, and then the third is the ruler of the ninth from the sign. So they'll always be the ruler of the same elements. So, for example, in Aries, the first dracon belongs to Mars, the second dracon belongs to the Sun, which is Leo. 5 from Aries is Leo, belongs to the Sun, and the third dracon belongs to Jupiter. 9 from Aries is Sagittarius, belongs to Jupiter. In Taurus, the first dracon is Venus, the second dracon is Mercury for Virgo, and then the third dracon is Saturn for Capricorn. In Gemini, the first dracon is Mercury for Gemini. And then the next air sign, Libra, Venus is the second dracona. And then the third air sign, Aquarius, Saturn is the third dracona of Gemini. So that's how you do dracons. But now the author, Montreshwar, is finally going to tell you a technique or a special way to use dracons outside of how it's been included in evaluating the dignity, the degree-specific dignity of a planet. Now he's got another technique that's specific to the dracona. And if you remember last week, we did a technique which was specific to Hora. Hora is dividing each sign into half. And the takeaway from it was that this technique pertains mostly to the topic of the Hora, which is second housey topic. In other words, your wealth, your stability, financial stability especially. So, having the good, when the technique evaluates good for the Hora technique, it primarily shows you that the person is good at making money, likes to make money. And sure enough, in our examples, Warren Buffett was like the main guy with the good D2. Now with D3, it's the same thing. When you have a technique that's specific to a divisional chart, D stands for divisional and 2 is how many divisions. So if I say D2, it means Hora. It's dividing the sign in 2. It's just an easier way to talk, especially to the non-Sanskrit world. D3 is Dracana. Trikana. All right, so what is the theme of Trikana? The theme here is third housey. So the nature of the Dracona shows your muscle, your strength, your ambition, your bravery, your boldness, your manliness. It's all third house type of stuff. Yeah? So hence, what you'll see with this technique and what the title of this live stream is how do you fight? The technique is centered on which Dracona rises. And depending on the dracona that's rising, you can see how the person would fight or how they fight for what they want, how they go about getting what they want. Okie dokie. So I'll just read you the text. It's going to cover 2 texts today. 3rd chapter 13 and 3rd chapter 14. The thing about this technique, it's not like it's not complicated. It's not complicated at all. It's very simple. I just already described it to you. Depending on the dracona that's ascending, you can tell the way the person fights. I'm just going to be specifics about that. So it's not like it's a complex thing. It doesn't really need us to evaluate Sanskrit too carefully. It's mostly just a lot of information, so we need to really visualize it, so that the information will make some sense, or that we could put it on a graph. Not a graph, like on a chart. However, just let me read you the his description of what it is. Singha Jashvi Tulan Riyugma Bhavanesh Antya Hayajadima. So he's going to say, with the way that he's going to identify dracons is say the first, middle, or the last. Because every sign has three, so there's going to be a first, middle, and last. So he says for Leo, Aries, Libra, and Gemini, then the middle one is such and such, right? Madhyostriyam Ayudha. They're all Ayudha dracons. I'll explain this in a second. So these certain, the middle ones of these certain signs and the last ones, so the last ones of like Leo and Libra, the middle ones of these other signs, these are called Ayudha, which means they have a shield. Pasholim Adhyo Bhavet, the first one of Narka, which is Makara. Narkadyo Nigalo is Nigala. And I think Pasholim Madhyo, I think it was talking about Scorpio, has something called Pasha. You'll see all this stuff. Narkadyo Nigalo Mrigendra Gatayor Adyo Vanin Madhyamo. Madhyama, the middle one of Vani. These are all the Sanskrit names for these signs. Mrigendra, Leo. Gridrasyo Vrishabhani Tangscha. Vihaga Karkyadi Kolananam. He's giving different kind of animals that signify the nature of different dracons. And mostly animals, except for this thing about shield. And the type of animal explains the way that the person fights. This is the third house, relates to animal nature. All the muscle and the animal instincts and the fighting comes from the third house. So it's fitting that there's mostly animals used to describe it. Then the 14th text, Korpyadhya Katantyo Bhusacharama Hishcha Jago Madhya Singha Dyalyantam Shachatush Padiha. So there's some of these dracons are going to be called four-legged, and some are like four-legged. This is a second classification. And some are, no, this is actually still the same with the animals. Some are four-legged like dogs, like wolves. And then some are snakes. Palamadhana Kuranidaya Daridra. That's the effect of certain animals. Don't worry, we'll go over it. I'm just reading the Sanskrit. It's just because like we always do that. Dvandvarkshe Sur Triganai Radhama. These words are super long. Radhama Samashubhanyastire Chotkramena Prahushta Jaha Stiraksheshvavashu Pashu Basamam Yena Lagne Palani. Alright, Lagne Palani is important. So the technique is from the Lagna. The technique is the dracon that the Lagna occupies. In other words, the ascendant. So in other words, the dracon that's rising tells you a lot about the person's D3. You can extrapolate that to every divisional chart. But here he's specifically really saying that it's important for D3. Look at the dracon which is rising, and he does not care about, well, this is in this sign and ruled by this planet. It's a totally different technique. We don't know where it came from. Maybe they got it from Egypt. Maybe they made it up themselves. Maybe they got it from somewhere else. But it has nothing to do with the typical thing. It's not about dignity, or it's not about planetary rulership, or how the planet feels about an element or something like that. So here's what it means. Now let me switch you over to a presentation. Un momento, por favore. Let me get this. And here we go. So we're going to start this presentation with a zodiac wheel with its dracons. So this is what the dracons are. They're divisions of each zodiac sign into 3 equal parts. You can see that. I hope you can, unless YouTube broke. Let me see. Didn't break. Dracons come from Egypt, or the Egyptians were the first people to use dracons. They used it more than the 12-fold signs. Now, the first thing that he does, the first part of like the 13th text is that he says, for the rising dracon, some of them are good, some of them are moderate, and some of them are bad. So we're going to represent that by green, yellow, and red. And it's in general about how you do with third house type of things. So how you do with ambitions, how you do with fights or things where you have to struggle or competition. So the first thing that he says is that you take he didn't actually say this first, but I'll say this first. Take the cardinal signs. They have a certain order to the dracons. The cardinal signs are good, medium, bad, in that order. So first dracon of any cardinal sign is a good dracon to have rising. Middle dracon of the cardinal sign is an okay dracon to have rising. And the third dracon of a cardinal sign is not the one that you want to have rising. Right, so if your ascendant is in the last 10 degrees of Aries or Cancer or Libra or Capricorn, then you got this red light. Meaning that the results that you get from struggling or fighting or competing aren't so good, or it's not so easy to succeed. Whereas if you have the first 10 degrees of a cardinal sign rising, because the nature of the cardinal sign is to set off in a new direction. So the beginning of the cardinal sign is really ideal for ambitions. The end of it is fatigued. That's the nature of the cardinal sign. So everybody sees that? It's simple. Then he also describes, I think the next one I'm going to show you is the dual signs. Yeah. The dual signs, he says, are the reverse order. The first dracon is red, not so good. The middle dracon is still middle. And the last dracon is good. So this is a difference between cardinal and dual that you should just realize in general about cardinal and dual signs. This part is different from the animal stuff. The nature of a dual sign is that it observes things from many, many angles. It participates in something in many different ways. The nature of a cardinal sign is instant commitment and right away progress, like starting progress right away. Getting started on something is instrumental to cardinality. So these cardinal signs like Aries, Cancer is a little less than the rest because of being watery. But Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, they like to start. They don't like to wait. They're good at starting. And so we like the starting first third of them. And the nature of that fight, if you are a person dominant with cardinal signs, then the nature of the fight is you should strike first. You shouldn't wait around. But if you are a dual type of person, like you have a lot of dual signs, or you have a dual ascendant, and or a dual moon, etc., however you want to calculate the dominance of the modalities, then it's the opposite technique. You see, there's many different ways to fight or win in a battle. It's not just that there's one best way to fight a battle. Depending on who you are, there's different ways to do it. If you're a cardinal person, then the best way to do it is strike fast and strike first and strike with complete confidence. and put 100% into it. If you're a dual type of person, then you do the opposite. You wait and wait and wait and wait and wait until you know everything that you need to know about the enemy or the situation or the obstacle or the challenge that you're facing, and then you just do it with expertise. So the quality of dual signs is to be intelligent. That's why they wait and they learn first and then they strike. The quality of cardinal signs is to be confident. So they burst right out of the gate. And so that's the way the dracons work in that order. The last dracon of dual signs is the most advantageous for the lugna to be there. And the first dracon of cardinal signs is the most advantageous. See? So that does give you a nice solid 20 degrees between the borders of every dual and cardinal sign, which is ideal for Draken. See, like my colorful, it looks like those candy peg, you remember, the paper where they had like those candy dots on them, or like M&Ms or something. Now, the remaining signs are the fixed stira signs. And what he says about those are bad, good, medium is the order. So you see with this stira sign is the type of approach which is, it's not confidence and, it's not confidence bursting out of the gate, nor is it waiting around and like the dual sign will review various theories and play out various simulations in the mind. And after the computations are done, then it can act. So that's why in the dual sign it's last. The fixed sign is not quite that. So the green part of the fixed sign doesn't go all the way to the end. But it's not in the beginning either, because the fixed sign isn't good with something new. So the dual sign, the fixed sign likes to be in the middle, where it has a lot of stability to it and balance. That's what's strong about fixed signs. If you want to be a good fighter or a good competitor, if you want to, basically compete well, and you have a dual ascendant. Sorry, and you have this is the problem when you have this mixonomia, where I mix up names, and it's pretty hard for people that listen to me talk about things that would have a lot of names. But if you have fixed signs and you want to know your best way to compete with others, your best way is to strike from a position of balance. So you wait until the newness of it is done, and you understand, but you don't wait until too long. You wait till your footing is secure and then you strike. With the dual sign, you wait a long time until your enemy has really shown you everything. Then you understand the enemy perfectly and you strike. Dual sign isn't really about that. Dual sign is not really concerned with the enemy showing you everything. It's about you getting your footing and then striking. Cardinal sign is just strike fast before they know what's coming. That's cardinal sign. So this is the basic lesson, life lesson, you can say, that the Draken teaches us about competition and fighting. There's 3 types of approaches. One is to strike fast and first, kill them before they know you're there. The second one is get yourself strong and then attack. And the third one is let them expose themselves and teach you everything you need to know about them, and then your effort is very small. You just hit them once on their delicate spot and then they're done. Those 3 approaches correspond to the cardinal sign, the fixed sign, and the dual sign. And you can basically say that if your ascendant is cardinal, then you should behave in the cardinal way. If your ascendant is dual, then you should behave in the dual way, which is to wait for your balance. If your ascendant is dual, then you should behave in the dual way, which is to wait for the enemy to teach you all about its weaknesses. And if your ascendant is fixed, then you should behave in the fixed way, which is to get your balance and get your footing and get your sense of security and then act. So, first 10 degrees of Aries, this will come naturally. First 10 degrees. If the ascendant is in the first 10 degrees of Aries or any cardinal sign, then that kind of thing will come naturally and effectively. If it's in the middle 10 degrees, then it's neither here nor there. And if it's in the last 10 degrees of Aries or any cardinal sign, then that's the problem that you need to work on. You need to be more... It's not that... It could be that you're just waiting too long when you really should be acting fast. But it's probably more along the lines that your first strike is ineffective. You have to put more attention in learning how to strike first without hitting the air. If your ascendant is in Taurus or any fixed sign, then and in the first 10 degrees, then you have this problem of acting too soon. Before you felt comfortable, before you felt strong. And if it's in the middle 10 degrees, then it comes naturally for you to get yourself strong and then act. If your ascendant is in Gemini or any of the dual signs and in the last 10 degrees, then it comes naturally for you to observe, learn, and then hit. But if it's in the first 10 degrees of a dual sign, then you need to learn that the enemy will defeat themselves if you wait for it. And they'll show you how to defeat them. Don't jump the gun and try to act like a cardinal. Because the worst thing is when the wrong type of person listens to the wrong type of motivational speaker. So like if you're a dual type and you start listening to the motivational speakers telling you to don't procrastinate, get out there and do it, then that's not good for a dual person. Or if you're the cardinal type of person and you're listening to the motivational speaker telling you, no, the art of war is to blah, 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 and you wait and your enemy will expose their weakness, it's not good for you. So you have to know you're different. Your nature has a particular fighting style. And fight doesn't just mean physical fight, but fight means how you attack problems. And you should apply the appropriate fighting style. So this is one half of the technique of what he teaches about using dracons. You got some questions about it? I'll check now. Thank you, Abhilash. You mean that in the Drekkana chart or natal? No, there's no Drekkana chart. In what we've seen so far in Phaladipika, there's just rulers of the Drekkana. So we mean in the natal chart. I don't know why Facebook hates like icons, emojis. Kona, you like this, right? Kona's a fighter. The degrees of a divisional chart you do by ratio of how far it is into the chart, into the sign. So for example, if your ascendant, this is a bad example. Let's say Aries, first Drekkana, it belongs to Mars. If you insist that you have to make it a zodiac sign, then you'll make it Aries because the Moon Tricona of Mars is Aries. If it is 1 degree in the sign, then it's 10% of the way into, let's make 5 so it's easier. If it's 5 degrees into Aries, then it's halfway through the first Drekkana. So if you want to know the degree that it's at in this Drekkana, and it's halfway through. It's 15 degrees of the so-called Aries of the Drekkana. That's how you do it. I have a video called Nakshatra Misconceptions, and I think it's the first episode of Nakshatra Misconceptions. I think I did 2 or 3 of those. That gives you the math and shows you because the people will apply this, people meaning cosmic insights, and probably also adopted by Kapil. They will say, since you know the degree, since it's valid to calculate the degree of a planet in an amsha, then that degree also tells you what nakshatra the planet is in the amsha. So the misconception there is that nakshatras get divided up into amsha or exist in the amsha. The amsha is a totally separate thing. the tropical chakra is different from the sidereal chakra. And nakshatras are not a part of rashis. They don't get divided up into the rashis. All right. Bardo, what kind of M&Ms did you get? So in Libra, the first trikona is Venus. Yes. The first trikona is Venus. The second trikona is the next air sign, Saturn, Aquarius. But it's not Aquarius. It's the ruler of Aquarius, Saturn. And then Mercury would be the last trikona. Kate wants to know if I use the degrees in my work. Sometimes. It's one of these things that one day I'm going to do a full exposition on, but it's really, really undeniable and obvious that the degrees in the Amsha are extremely important, and the technique that I have for exposing the importance of the degree is how the Navamsha configurations conjoin the basic chart configurations. For example, a person with an ascendant at 15 degrees of Libra and also Saturn at 15 degrees of Libra and in the Navamsha, it becomes really significant, more so than if Saturn is more at like 5 degrees of Libra in the Navamsha, for example. So that's undeniable. I've seen it a billion times. Not a billion times, but I've seen it like 80% of the time that I look, I see something significant that matches the expectation. But I have yet to like really sit down and test it and work it out and then be able to explain it. But one day I will. Samurai says, if you have any planet in the rising Dracon, it signifies a kind of special area method where you can see. That's a good idea. He doesn't say that, but that is a good idea. Should we check the Dracon of the rising sign along with the third to check how we fight? Yeah, you should always frame the subdivisional chart in reference to the house that it's mostly expanding upon. Yes, that is also a good thing to do. All right. Want to see the next one now? The next technique is with the animals. So the next technique, he said that these particular dracons are called Ayudha, which means they're shielded. And that means they're like turtles or they're like armadillos. They're difficult to puncture. They're difficult to attack. So this is a special thing on top of the green, red, and yellow consideration. So look at Aries, for example. Even though the third Dracon of Aries is red, which means you have a problem not striking quick. Or striking quick ineffectively, right? However, it's got a blessing in that it's an Ayudha nakshatra, which means that it's ready for war. That's another meaning of Ayudha. It's ready for war. It's prepared for war. It's got its armor on. So even though that's a weak Dracona, it's actually not so bad because it's difficult to attack them. So these people, look at for example, last Dracona of Leo, Donald Trump. Difficult to attack. He's got so many things that could be attacked. Doesn't really get significantly in trouble for any of them. Whereas if somebody else had all this stuff, like what's his name, Richard Nixon got impeached for like what? Like compared to the stuff that's been going on recently. I wonder what Richard Nixon's Dracon ascending is. Right? So yeah, like the first Dracon of Aries, first or last. Gemini also has two that are armored. So Gemini final Final third of Gemini is a really good rising Dracona, because it's very intelligent about how it fights, and it's also very protected. It protects itself really well. Final Dracon of Leo, middle Dracon of Virgo, final Dracon of Libra is kind of doing the same thing as the final Dracon of Aries. They're opposite from each other. It's kind of protecting itself, even though it's not really fighting so well or aggressing so well. It's difficult to defeat it anyway. Same thing with the first Dracon in Sagittarius. Last Dracon of Sagittarius is very ideal. So the super ideal ones are the last Dracon of Sagittarius, first Dracon of Aries, last Dracon of Virgo. And these are the most favorable. There's guys that are called Ayudhas. These are the most, I would say, most ideal Dracons. The next type, has to do with Scorpio and Capricorn. So this probably has to do with the nature of these signs themselves, being ruled by Saturn and Mars. The middle one of Scorpio is called a Noose. Apple somehow doesn't have a Noose emoji. There's a couple of emojis. They don't have a Vulture emoji. They don't have a Noose emoji. I guess they want to be PC. But yet they have other emojis which you could use to insult people. So I don't know. So this is the closest thing I can get, blue and red ropes to a noose. I was very surprised there was no noose. But the middle one of Scorpio is called a noose, or a lasso. A lasso. Maybe I could have looked up lasso. Maybe they have an emoji for lasso. And then the first one of Capricorn is called a handcuffs. They don't have handcuffs. Apple's emojis, handcuffs. I didn't find them. So I had to put these chains for handcuffs. There's something special about these two. And these are both green also. If I might want to go back to being a siderealist, because that's where my ascendant would be, in first bit of Capricorn, if it's sidereal. But actually my fighting is terrible. I'm an awful fighter. So it really shouldn't be there. But if it's the middle, see, actually this third Dracon of Capricorn describes me perfectly. Striking fast and first, but ineffectively. All right, back to this new thing. Noose will be that it ties you up. Capricorn, the handcuffs thing in Capricorn will be that it locks you down. So if you try to fight with a person who's middle of Scorpio rising, then you can expect to get tied up. Which means that they will somehow get you tripping over yourself and get you binding up yourself. Whereas they're not affected by your attacks. Your attacks just tie you up. So if you have middle of Scorpio ascending, then that's what you want to try to do to people. Tie them. Bind them. Hold them to their thing. So if they move a little bit to the right, don't let them move back to the left. Keep them there. Tie them to the spot. If you have the beginning of Capricorn, it's very similar to the noose. Noose or lasso and cuffs are pretty much the same thing. You're arresting the person. But it's just that Capricorn is not water, right? It's earth. Maybe this has to do with it. Capricorn, it's more it's going to just put you in a prison. And Scorpio is going to tie you up. Very, very much the same thing, so I grouped them together. But the first Dracon of Capricorn is more metallic feeling. It's more you're going to get imprisoned by the person. If you try to attack them, and if you're the person with the first 10 degrees of Capricorn rising, then that's what you want to do in your fighting. You do not let this person equivocate. You bind them into their, whatever they do, they're committed to it. And then that's how you just wear them out and kill them. All right, so those are the Dracons special Dracons for Scorpio and Capricorn. Now he says there's some which are called vultures. The closest thing I found in Apple's emoji icons is an eagle. I guess they don't like vultures. Vulture, it waits for you to die and then it picks up on you, right? So if you're fighting a person with a vulture Draken arising, fight doesn't just mean that you're sitting there with boxing gloves on. Fight means you could be struggling with them to get a contract. Fight could mean that you're trying to attract the same woman or man. Fight could mean all kinds of different things. Trying to get into the same job, get hired for the same job. Fight could mean fighting. Fight could mean a beauty contest. Any kind of contest or competition with a person who's got these Drakkans rising, then expect them to try to find your weakness and pick at it. Find the spot where you're dead. Find the spot where you have weakness and eat that. So, like, find any weakness. I wonder, Hillary Clinton, seems like a good example of this. This happened to her with the email thing. Somebody really expert came up with that. Whoever came up with this way of attacking Hillary Clinton must have had one of these Drakkans rising, I suspect. Because it's a really fine example of how the vulture attacks. It looks for the spot where it's dead. Dead means, in other words, can't do anything about this. And that's what it exploits. It finds the weakness in the thing and exploits it. So if you're middle Libra, the best one would be middle Libra. The best vulture is middle Libra. Because first Leo is red and first Aquarius is also red. But if you're first third of Aquarius, first third of Leo, or last third of Libra, or middle third of Libra, then that's how you really can succeed in the contests. Okay. Now, the one reason why I felt like I had to look at the Sanskrit for this one, because otherwise this is such a simple, it's just data. But is that I'm confused, that you'll see why I get confused, why he's got the first Drakana of Leo as being vulture. Because he's also going to describe it as something else. So I went into the Sanskrit and checked it, and it actually does say that. It does say that. So either the manuscript got messed up somewhere along the way, or he actually intends this. You'll see how it gets confusing later. Then he says that the last Drakana of Taurus is like a bird. So not a vulture, but a bird, like a pretty bird, like a parrot, or a bird, or a songbird, something, a bird. Not a bird of prey. Like these other three are birds of prey. There's only one Drakana which is called a bird. And that's the last Draken of Taurus. So there's two ways that you can analyze how a bird fights. The one way of analyzing how a bird fights, and maybe somebody knows something else that would make sense with Taurus, but what I thought was, what I think is the most important thing is that the birds, they collect a little bit from here and there. And then they bring it all together. So like they get a small branch here, a small branch, a little twig here, and they bring it together and they make a nice strong nest out of it. And that's how they get their strength to fight. And it seems consistent with Taurus. This Taurus is feminine but relational. So it's gonna like bring together teammates or parts to help it in its battle. Like the way a bird would build a nest out of twigs. That's if your ascendant is the final third of Taurus. Another thing about a bird is like, who wants to fight a bird? The bird's pretty. This is another thing that Taurus might be good at, especially the final Draken of it, is it would just get people to surrender without a fight. That could also be an implication of the bird Drakana. It's a unique Drakana. There's 3 unique Drakanas. The bird, the lasso, and the handcuffs. But lasso and handcuffs are pretty much the same. Oh, this is also unique. There's a pig. And the pig is the first Drakana of Cancer. Fitting, watery, big, heavy Cancer. The pig's virtue is you push the pig, it doesn't move. You kick the pig, it doesn't move. You light a firecracker behind a pig, finally it moves. It's hard to move pigs around. So that's the nature of, I would say that's the indication of the pig as representing the first dracon of Cancer. The strength is, what would you call it? Stubbornness or tenacity. Not budge, but it's not like Saturnian stubbornness and tenacity. It's piggy. So they're quiet about it. They just stand still. But it's the first dracona of a cardinal sign, so they'll like get to the spot first and stand there. This is the asset of the first 10 degrees of Cancer rising. You want something, so you make sure you're the first one online when the store opens up and you get it. You want somebody, so you get to them first and you don't move. It's not like attacking first, but it's like being there first and claiming the spot is the special strength for this dracona. Then he says there are 3 which are called snake. And this one he says is kind of negative. This is where he's saying Daridra and stuff like that in the Sanskrit. So apparently these, he doesn't put it in a good light. But they're in the water signs. The 3 water signs can have serpents. Pisces final, Scorpio first, and Cancer final. So it's not consistent like it's always final or anything like that. It's also not consistent that it's always red. So the Pisces serpent is quite different from the Scorpio serpent or the Cancer serpent. The Pisces serpent is probably more effective because it's a green. It's a good dracona to have rising. What is the nature of the serpent? It describes this in his text, and I felt that he was giving the hint, like you take the nature of the animal. This is like a serpent, so it's going to be angry and dangerous. You should not, if you're dealing with somebody who has these draconas rising, don't provoke them. They're easily provoked. Don't tell jokes that you think are jokes. They'll take them as insults. Don't provoke the person. Don't show them that you're going to attack either. Don't provoke them. If you want to capture a snake, you can do it very quickly and from behind before it knows that you're coming. If it knows that you're coming, it's either going to bite you first or get out of there before you can grab it. So the snake is dangerous and angry. It'll counterattack you right away. If you do have a serpent, dracon rising, then I would say you can scare people well. And it would probably be most effective with Pisces. But of course it would be like, now since it's Pisces in the final dracon of the dual sign, now it would be like an intellectual way of projecting a serpentine energy. Whereas with Scorpio, it's like an immediate way of projecting a serpentine energy. And with Cancer, again, it's a final way. Cancer will first appear piggish, and then later will appear serpentish in the fight. So it will first appear like unbudging, and then at the end it gets really angry and lashes out. Scorpio lashes out as the first thing that it does. Then it ties you up. Pisces waits around, learns from you, and then lashes out easy, bites you in the vulnerable spot. That's how I sort out these 3 serpent nakshatras. And then finally he has 4, let's call them doggish. The doggish nakshatras. They will behave like dogs. Or wolves, which is that they will eat anything and they're very, very cruel. I know dogs that have been domesticated are not so cruel. But wild dogs, all animals are cruel. I don't know why dogs have why do dogs have the lore of being so cruel? Because they gang up on things. They don't fight in any kind of noble way. Like, I know animals fight in a noble way, but at least they fight one-on-one. Or sometimes like a lion will go into a herd. But with a dog, it's the reverse. The dog will take a herd to attack one person. So they're described as cruel or base. But this is your asset if you have the doggish dracon arising, that you need to attack in a pack. So again, notice this. There's one of these that's in Taurus, and it's the best one in Taurus. It's the green light in Taurus. So it's kind of similar to the bird. I see it as being similar as the bird is bringing things together to make the nest. The dog is attacking in a pack and not really trying to look good or finesse the attack. Middle of Aries also works this way, but it's not really the ideal doggish trachona because it's a middly effective one. Then you could see, now this is why I'm confused about the first dracon of Leo, because if I read the text carefully, it says that the first dracon of Leo is a dog and a vulture. They're not incompatible, so maybe he actually intentionally means that it's both a dog and a vulture. And where's the other dog? It's at the end of Scorpio. Scorpio is a toughie. Serpent, lasso, dog. Scorpio is kind of good for fighting. Scorpio and Aries, they're all packed. All of their dracons are special. Mars's dracons are always special. The rest of the signs, they either have 2 or 1 dracon that's special. Special for fighting. So there you have it. It's kind of a very simple technique. Easy to understand. Easy to apply. There's a bit of a dynamic here of where, although the information is easy, you have to actually let it simmer in your mind because it's very symbolic. An animal. So the more that you learn about the animal and the way that it interacts with its competitors, the more that you learn about this dracona. Make sense? Any questions about what it means or how to use it? It's kind of exciting to have the topic of how you fight. It's kind of a new topic we usually get into. It's like more philosophical mumbo jumbo, or how you love or make relationships or something. But now we got how you fight. No, there's no reason, Bardo, to think that this is Montreshwar's personal invention. It's very unlikely that this is his personal invention. In fact, he opens up his book by saying, this book is not my personal invention. I'm just teaching you what I collected from Parashar and Jaimini and all these guys. And other people that you have in Garga and all these other guys. So it's very highly unlikely. And the animal-y symbolism has an Egyptian feeling to it, to me personally. I'm suspicious that it might be, although I have no evidence or anything to suggest that it comes from Egypt. It just seems that way. Interesting. Alf says the Trachon chart is amazing. for conflict resolution and getting things done. That is very true. I don't know what you guys are laughing at, but I'm glad you're laughing. La Lama asks again, we're inspecting the ascendant of the natal chart, not the D3, correct? You're actually interpreting the D3 of the ascendant. You're interpreting the dracon of the ascendant. Look, imagine the middle of the zodiac circle and draw a line from the middle all the way out to the edge, halfway through Aries. That's the ascendant at 15 degrees Aries. So it goes through the middle of Aries, and then goes the trachona, or the third division of it, will be in that dog yellow middle trachona of Aries. So that's what we're talking about. If you turn the wheel more and the ascendant, that line goes to the first half of Taurus, you draw a line from the middle of the circle out to the edge at about a little, within that red dracon of Taurus. That's where the ascendant falls, because it's at that degree. That's why it's in that dracon. Right, Abhilash, you notice that Mars all has special dracons. All the Mars's dracons are special because Mars is very much itself like a third house Karaka and a D3 Karaka. Yeah, you can fight for peace. It depends on what you're fighting. Like I said, fight means what you're struggling to achieve. Do we find this in Kala software? Well, you don't even need any software for this. All you need to know is the degree of the ascendant. It's super simple math. It's 0 to 10 degrees first trachona, 10 to 20 second trachona, 20 to 30 third trachona. And then just look on this graph right here and see what are the characteristics of that trachona. L9, I9 Bash, do you use this for other planets like Mars? Or do you only do the ascendant? He only says the ascendant. But now that you have the information on it, you use it on all the planets. And realize that it would be the most impactful on the ascendant, but I'm sure it has a big impact depending on the moon. Right? Where's your moon? It's not going to show you literally how you fight when it's not the ascendant, but it will show you how what that planet specifically symbolizes, what that sub aspect of your competitive nature is like. So my moon, for example, is in an armored trachona. That says something about the emotional aspect of how I involve myself in competition. What other planets do I know about? Yeah, Mercury. Actually, I don't know about them too much by heart, believe it or not. Kate, do you use the Prashar deities? No, I haven't tried that. La Lama. What about the missing ones? The missing ones are not special. See, like a zodiac sign like Pisces and Aquarius, they don't have many special dracons. It makes sense. Even the Capricorn doesn't make as much sense. They're not very fight-oriented zodiac signs. Capricorn is, but it doesn't have that much Draken advantage. So the first 10, Alf says, so the first 10 degrees of Libra Dracon, he says it's a dog. No, Libra, the first 10 degrees is empty. Green, though. Bardo says, I have no animal assigned. It means it's not a special one. You don't have a special, but you'll have a color. You know, green, red, or yellow, and then go to the first part of this stream today where I talked about how you use the cardinality or the fixedness or the duality of the sign to indicate how you should attack your challenges. Kona, good, we got a comment from Kona. Kona says, nice. You read Kona's comment? He's a boxer or fighter type person. Makes sense being my Libra at 23 degrees. Always had trouble striking first during sparring, but have been working on it, especially for being told I have power when I hit. Got to improve. See, maybe the rest of your planets are predominantly in other types of signs, like not cardinal. Yeah, Katie says Capricorn using handcuffs. Maybe that's because they're not good at hand-to-hand combat. You're immobilized. Capricorn will just do that. Capricorn, and the best part of Scorpio is just to not let you get out of whatever you get yourself into. I9 Bash says Red Shield Aries 21 degrees. I see what you're saying. Vox Populi asks if Chitra is fighty. Again, you're taking a Nakshatra chakra and putting it into a Rashi chakra. Maybe Chitra is fighty or not fighty, but it's a different thing. What degrees of the zodiac does Chitra currently overlap? That's another issue. Then it's not because of Chitra that you're getting the quality, but it's because of the degrees that it actually, of where it is in the Rashi that you get it. But Chitra on its own is not fighty. Chitra on its own is beauty oriented. What planet you have in Chitra makes a big difference, etc. But it's beauty oriented. But it's going to come into a red shielded thing. Or I'm not quite even sure where it is exactly right now. All right, guys. I could see we got some viewers. So probably you guys like. Right, Alf knows the Chitra. All right, thank you very much for being here. Yeah, Kona, I remember this chart. Big third house. All right, guys, see you in 2 days for the question and answers about the reincarnation content that we covered in last week's Bhagavatam. If you didn't get to see that, go look at my channel page and find the live stream previous to this one. 2 days will be questions and answers about that previous live stream. Thanks very much. Thanks. Nice to see all of you.